Now, I'm sure a lot of people following me are more than curious about what I thought of all the new stuff that came out at Toy Fair, all the Transformer based stuff, specifically because there's a ton of it. We got movie series, the studio series. We got Cyberverse first reveals, new stuff for Power of the Primes, a whole bunch of new things, and even the announcement of the next Generations trilogy. Ton of stuff to unravel, and for now, I'm putting all of that aside and saving it for an upcoming episode of WTF at TFW, the official Transformers podcast of TFW 2005, where you'll be able to hear me, Vangelis, and Aaron roundtable discussion all the stuff from Toy Fair, because we're all going to have a ton of thoughts on it because there's a ton of cool stuff. But for now, I want to keep this to just the thing that was the biggest news to come out of Toy Fair. At the very least, if you are like me and you've been a toy collector since the 90s, and there's just certain things that you had to accept and certain things that you didn't think were changeable, like the people who made the Power Ranger toys. Because Bandai in Japan has been making the Power Ranger toys, or Super Sentai toys, for somewhere around 40 years now. Like, that's a huge number for a licensed series to be done by the same people. So now, I always assumed that meant Bandai would always do the toys here in America. Why wouldn't they? Well, that's not the case anymore. After 25 years, Bandai of America is no longer making Power Ranger toys. Now it's going to be Hasbro. Which, this is enormous. Like, number one, of course you go with Hasbro. Like, after what they've done with their licensed stuff with Marvel, and admittedly this year or last year to a lesser degree with Star Wars, which I kind of blame on the polarized opinion of Last Jedi. You can kind of see why they would get the brand. They are very much on the nose right now when it comes to big licensed things. But this is so bizarre to me because I'm so used to Hasbro and Transformers specifically losing out to Power Rangers. Because growing up, being a collector in the 90s, it was just a given. Like, no matter how good the Transformers were, no matter how good the cartoon was, no matter how good Beast Wars was, you just had to admit, Power Rangers is just way too dominant. If you weren't there in the 90s, if you're too young to remember it, it was nothing but Power Rangers. You couldn't escape it. Everything was all about Power Rangers. It was indomitable how big the franchise was. That's tapered off a lot. Declining quality, declining, whether you want to blame it on the Sentai footage or just a declining interest from the producers or the writing staffs or whatever. Power Rangers is not what it used to be. But this is still huge. This is still absolutely gigantic. You mean the people who are the best at handling shape-changing robots are now going to be designing Megazords? That's awesome to me. That is beautiful. I'll tell you the most beautiful thing about this. We just finished Q Ranger in Japan, which everyone assumed was going to be the brand new Power Ranger series. And the lovely thing about that is Bandai of America invested heavily in the design process. They worked directly with Toei to develop the look and the style of the Rangers and all the Zords and toys, because they're kind of sick of Toei and Bandai of Japan coming up with these things that you just couldn't sell here in America. You can't have an entire toy line based on trains here in America. American kids just don't have a connection to trains like that the way they do in Japan. It's not part of the culture. And you're not going to get kids to buy these super blocky toys from TJOmega. You're just not. Those didn't even do that well in Japan, let alone over here. And I know it's kind of like a Minecraft-y thing, but have you seen the Minecraft toys piled up? Those aren't great either. So, I don't think... I think Bandai of America just got sick of it and went, okay, look, Toei, you and me are going to sit down and we're going to develop the next Sentai line, so the toys that we get for an upcoming Power Ranger season are ideal for an American toy shelf. And now Bandai of America is not going to produce any toys based on Q Ranger. That is hilarious to me. That is... delicious irony. Irony like that only comes around once in a lifetime. Soak it in. Savor it. Enjoy it. It won't come around again anytime soon. I love that. But we throw in a little bit of a curveball because apparently and Hasbro and Saban have decided that the next series they're going to do is not Q Ranger, it's Go Buster. Okay, sure. Now I can understand this as like a stopgap because Go Buster is not going to have as many toys to fill out like the 2 year cycle that they've been doing for Power Ranger toys for a while now. With the Dino Charge, Super Dino Charge, Samurai, Super Samurai, or whatever you want that season. You're not going to have that with Go Buster. There's just not enough toys to go around because there weren't as many Rangers, weren't as many Zords or roleplay toys. So I can understand it being a good starting point. And style-wise, it's a smart choice because that means the stuff that Hasbro will first put out will be completely different from what anyone else has put out before for Power Ranger toys. So there's going to be a new vibe, a new feel to it, which is an intelligent choice, I think. It's going to be a nice way of kind of showing this is the change of regime. That said, I think the number one thing all of us were hoping for with the change was, are the Megazords actually going to work like modern toys now? Because the big thing everyone still hates about the Power Ranger toy line is the Megazords, for all the technology that has improved in toys for the last 25 years, still has 90s articulation. An elbow. I'm asking for an elbow joint. Would it kill you to give me an elbow? How about a knee? Can you bend the knee? No, I can't bend the knee. It's infuriating, isn't it? Because the Zords, some really cool Zords have come around, but they're all bricks. All the toys I grew up with are all just bricks, and they didn't have to be. So I think what a lot of people were hoping for was, even though Takara handles the engineering side of Transformers, that the people handling Transformers have a pedigree that would make these robots really nice and articulated as well as combining. We literally just got done with a whole series of them, and we're introducing another series. We got another series full of more of them. We're still doing this. Maybe they'll be better. I hope they will be better. But the way that Go Buster's mechs change and transform and combine, I don't anticipate them actually working out for that. The toys themselves, just the way they're engineered, maybe you get some elbows, but I think like universal hips and knees are out of the question. The way the Red Zord morphs, and the fact that the first Power Rangers series that Hasbro does is going to have a figure that's basically a triple changing transformer is kind of brilliant. I'm not going to lie. I love that. And that's, again, part of the pedigree part of this that's going to help with identifying this new brand under its new ownership. So, good on you. That said, I don't think we're going to get what we want out of Megazords for this new series, Power Rangers Beast Morphers. Someone at Hasbro really wanted to call it Beast Machines. They did. They were this close. But whatever we call it, I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think it's possible, rather, to actually do what we want with the Megazords. The way they combine is just too finicky. It's just too cobbled together. So, unfortunately, we might have to wait a little bit. I think the Q Ranger toys would be perfect for that. If you do away with the engineering, the electronics for the mecha, with the Shishi Voyager especially, I think there's plenty of room in that to have universal shoulders, universal hips, and knees as well. I could see where knees and elbows would be a very doable thing in those toys. Whether or not that will actually happen, who knows? I'm hoping. I have my fingers crossed, because I think it's what a lot of people want. I think it's what a lot of collectors especially want. I know collectors also want a whole bunch of stuff to change, and I am very, very much with you there. In particular, I want the Legacy line to continue, but I want it handled the way Marvel Legends handles it. Bandai of America just flew way off the rails when it came to the Legacy line. I mean, they were doing really, really good, right? Okay, so we got all these classic Zords, and they've got, really good paint and no stickers and show-accurate detail. And they all look really, really good, and they feel good. They're nice and solid figures, but they still only have But they do have die-cast. They have completely pointless die-cast, but they don't have elbows. Except for the Tiger Zord, I think. That's about as much as we ever got. Again, like, I want them to do better here, because Hasbro is not as tone-deaf to its audience as Bandai of America. No matter how many times collectors scream, we want articulation, they wouldn't do it. They just kept on going, well, die-cast and paint. That's about all we got for our games. Die-cast and paint. And that's all we got for the Legacy line. That's not what we want. We want articulation. We want Megazords that can actually pose the way they do during the fights in the show. You know? That doesn't seem so hard. They never got that. And then the weapon toys did fine. And then they just started going weird. We got a ninja coin set that didn't have a falcon coin. Why? Like, are you that hung up on making us buy the movie morphers that are just repaints of the normal morphers, and you're still charging $60 even though they only come with like 2 coins? That's still stuck in my craw, by the way. And then you get things like a $60 communicator watch. You're telling me that little tiny watch with the changeable plastic bands is as much as that big heavy metal morpher with 5 coins that I bought a few years ago? I adamantly do not believe you. I adamantly believe that that is a complete waste of money, that you are just completely scamming people out of. There's no way that little fake watch cost you that much to make. There's no way you should be charging that. So you get weird things getting released like that, and like, this isn't quite what we wanted. You know, and the Legacy line did like the movie coins. The movie coins are barely a thing in the movie, and they don't look like coins anyway. They're rocks. They're like shiny rocks. No one cares. Did you see how the morphers piled up in the stores? No one cared. No one wanted it. So then you just get all this going off the charts and just going completely off the rails. And did we ever get a Shogun Megazord? No. And now it looks like we're never going to get it, unless they've been working on it in secret and it's coming out this year while they still have the license. A boy can dream. Don't blame me. That's my favorite Megazord. I still regret selling it back when I was trying to afford my very first MetroCon. I still need to go back and get Muteki Shogun, because I need a Shogun Megazord with a white arm. So you do have room to grow there. I hope they do continue that. I do hope the Legacy line comes back and go, here, we're going to do that Megazord again, but we're going to do it from the ground up. We're not just going to add die-cast to the cheapo Megazord we made a couple of years ago. We're going to redo it from the ground up. It's going to articulate, and it's not going to have die-cast. We're going to put that budget into making elbows and shoulders and knees and universal hips and the things that these toys should have had 15 years ago. And I think they would do so much better. I think you'd get a whole new audience that way. And then there is the rest of the Legacy line, which is the action figures, because Bandai of America, just in the last couple of years, expanded out to normal releases. It wasn't just Toys R Us exclusives anymore. Now Legacy included all these action figures that were at normal retail, and that should be fine, except even though this was Legacy branded, even though these were based on classic Rangers, you still had design mentality that they use for the kids line. You know why every Power Ranger on the shelf looks like they've injected steroids for about 8 years straight? It's because they think the Power Rangers on the toy shelves have to look as powerful and strong as the superhero toys. They have to be as buff as Superman and Captain America. I wouldn't even say Spider-Man. That's not buff enough. We need buffer. Can we make the Red Ranger look like the Hulk? Probably not, but we're going to try. We don't want that. Collectors never want it. I hate that aesthetic. Everyone I know who collects Power Rangers hates that over-muscled aesthetic because it's not what they look like. If they look like that in the show, it's for comedic effect. It's a brief upgrade that's just for laughs, or it's a weird form in Zyuohger that is, again, supposed to be more comical than anything. It's just not how Power Rangers are supposed to look. Power Rangers are about the martial artist's physique. Sleek, thin, and athletic. Not Herculean. Not pro wrestler. So the first thing, if they knock this out of the park, like I'm hoping they will, They will do a Marvel Legends style line where it's about accuracy. That's all I want, is a line that's about accuracy. And if you're designing it for collectors, design it for collectors. Don't, get rid of the kids' toy line mentality that is choking everything else in the toy line because it has to look a certain way or else kids aren't going to buy it. And if it's a collector's line, understand what collectors want. Again, Hasbro isn't so tone deaf about this. They take some time, but eventually Hasbro gave us an RC. They gave us combiners. They gave us headmasters. They gave us city formers. Didn't they? Well, you're mostly a city former. You're kind of a city former. Forget I mentioned you. They do. They try. They actually do listen to their fans. So at least they listen better than Bandai of America does. So I'm hoping that they understand that what we want is a line like Legacy, but now as like a Legends style line, we can actually have accurate depictions of Power Rangers. And because we are dealing with Go Busters first, where the suits are leather and not spandex, I think you have a perfect precedent to actually make accurate depictions of the characters. Make them look the way they do in the show, because leather doesn't bend that way. It doesn't bend around muscles. So you kind of have to now, don't you? Again, a good way of changing the guard. I'm liking the idea of using Go Busters more and more, because there's so many advantages just in differentiating it from past Power Rangers. It's kind of a clever move, isn't it? So, let's say they do a Legends line, where they do a Marvel Legends line, Power Ranger Legends. The first thing is accuracy. The second thing, Bandai of America never understood the point of a Build-A-Figure. I don't know why, but they decided that a Build-A-Figure should be like, take Wave 1 of Legacy. Wave 1 was the Red Ranger with the original Megazord's torso, the Green Ranger with absolutely nothing, and then the 3 Ninja Storm Rangers who had all the parts to form a figure of the Storm Megazord. Hold on. What did you do here? I understand what they did. They wanted the Red and Green Ranger out in Wave 1 because they're guaranteed to sell. Fine. But they did the Ninja Storm Rangers, which seemed weird, simply because they're a team of 3, and they could get the entire group out in just one wave. Okay. I understand that. Fine. Whatever. Few things here. There's 2 points to a Build-A-Figure. Point number 1 is to make a figure in the same toy line with the same aesthetic that is too large to sell individually at the same price point. Number 2, and we know this is the real reason why they make Build-A-Figures, to trick people into buying the entire wave. I mean, when you were buying your Guardians of the Galaxy set, did you really want the ugly-ass Iron Man that was in that wave? No. Some of you maybe, but most of you, no. You needed that little piece of Groot that they packed in with him, and then Iron Man went straight to eBay. That's how it works. And they don't care if you send it to eBay. They got their money. So that's all the Build-A-Figure is. It's a marketing scam. So where does it make sense to actually make a Build-A-Figure the way they did, where the Mighty Morphin cast is spread across 3 waves, and you've got torsos and limbs hanging around for months on end? Just, you could be waiting 6 months to complete this figure just because your retailer isn't getting these figures in stock. And that's a big thing. That's an even bigger point to this. You can't do it that way, because if the toy line doesn't succeed, then you've left your collectors with 2/3 of an action figure. And either your local stores never get in that wave because they just weren't selling well enough that month, or the toy line gets canned altogether and you never see the rest of that figure. So you just got this pile of useless parts that's never going to be complete. That's infuriating. And it's really, really underhanded and really, really unfortunate to do to your loyal collector base. That's why you can't spread Build-A-Figures across multiple waves. You have to do it in one. So here's what I would hope for. I would hope for a line that listens to fans, that makes sure they could sell, but also does what fans have been wanting for a long time. So you do a Wave 1 that's red, pink, and green to make sure it sells, and then you throw in like Alpha 5, who has never gotten a really good toy. So here he can have a really good toy. You throw in a Goldar with a removable wings, so he can be, season 1, season 2, whichever way. And then you have a Rita Repulsa, because Rita's never had a good toy. She's had one toy and it was terrible. You all know it was terrible. So it's her time. It's a huge demand for collectors. This is a guaranteed sellout through Wave 1. And since you got a little tiny figure in Alpha, your Build-A-Figure is squat. So that big bulbous belly can be packed in with him and make up that price. This is how Build-A-Figures work. So Squat is now in your collection by no effort of your own. Which means when Wave 2 announces Babu, you have to buy Wave 2 now, don't you? You can't have Squat and not have Babu. So Babu is your Build-A-Figure for Wave 2. And you do the same thing. It's black, it's yellow, it's blue for your Ranger cast, and then to sell the wave, you put in Lord Zed. You put in maybe a Putty 2-pack, because if Putty is individual, they'll never sell. You have to 2-pack them by the same logic of, well, the Hulk is in the same wave as Spider-Girl, and they're both $20. So clearly they're balancing out the budget between the two. Same way. And when we have the Yellow Ranger in, you can do that. Especially when the other figure I put in the wave is Scorpina. Another huge demand for collectors who's never had a good toy. So you've got demand figures, big demand figures, and then Squat and Babu. And then comes Wave 3. We have the White Ranger to sell the wave. We put in an armorless Green Ranger and an armored Red Ranger, because that's all that's left of the Mighty Morphin options at that point. And then you just fill out the ranks. You do a Ninjor, you do a 2-pack of Z-Putties, and you do Rito Revolto. And then you make the Build-A-Figure Finster, who would never sell if he was sold individually. But this way, everyone's going to buy Wave 3, because at that point you've got every Moon Monster, you got the entire cast of Rita's crew, except Finster. So now you have to buy Wave 3 too. This is how you do it. This is how Build-A-Figure works. This is what guarantees them to sell. And you could do the same thing with everything. You could make a cast, you can make the human cast have full figures and do Bulk and Skull as the Build-A-Figures over 2 waves. That would sell. Everyone would spend whatever it costs to get Bulk and Skull. You could do it with Zords and pack in Zords that wouldn't sell on their own, Super Zeo Megazords and things like that. You could do, monsters. This is the biggest thing I hated about the Legacy line. They didn't do any monsters. You want a Goldar. You want a King Sphinx. I would pay your $20 retail for an articulated pudgy pig. I would. And a lot of people would. That's one reason why Legacy just didn't look good on a toy shelf, because it's all just, it's all just spandex bodybuilders in primary colors. This one thing that Hasbro's very gun-shy about is producing too many things that look alike. And when you do nothing but Rangers and no variety in between, your entire toy line looks exactly the same. Even if you're spreading out what season the Rangers are, we admit that Rangers, a lot of them kind of look the same. So your toy line looks the same. You need monsters. And Hasbro knows this stuff. This is why you get a Rito. This is why you get a Ninjor. This is why you get a Goldar and Putties, because it's variety. It's variety. It looks good on a shelf. It gives collectors what they want. And it doesn't look like you're selling the same toy 6-7 times in a row at the same time. This is how it works, and this is what I want. You can do a whole wave of monsters for all I care. Throw like a Build-A-Figure Mutitus in there. I would be happy. Do a wave of nothing but Zord or Megazords that are high articulated, just so I can get a Cyclopsis. So much untapped potential. And listen to me. I'm only talking Mighty Morphin. We haven't even gotten to In Space. We haven't even gotten to Time Force. You haven't even gotten to RPM, 3 of the most beloved seasons from fans. There's way too much untapped potential here, and I know Hasbro is probably going to tap as much of it as they can, and I hope they do, because there's a lot of it that Bandai of America never even touched. And then you've got all the other potential that we have here, aside from articulated Megazords, aside from show-accurate action figures. There's the role-play stuff, which admittedly Hasbro doesn't do as much of, but you know what Hasbro is really good at? Big, dumb, gimmicky toys. Do you know what Power Rangers really isn't good at? Big, dumb, gimmicky toys. You got your weapons and you got your morphers, that's fine, but There's so much silly stuff in Power Rangers, and it all cries out for spring-loaded gimmicks of some kind, doesn't it? I will tell you right now, there's a gimmick that Hasbro's already done that would work perfectly for Power Rangers, and it was the Hero Mashers, or I guess they would be Morphin Mashers if they did it again. You take that same technology and you make an action figure line of Megazords where the arms and legs come off on the spots that make sense. So, if you take the legs off the Megazord, it's all of the saber-toothed tiger and nothing but the saber-toothed tiger. That kind of thing. You do the same thing for like heads and chest pieces, because every Megazord has a unique head and chest, and then just make its universal buck body with universal hips, so you can have this base, this essential articulation only action figure that you can interswap and make it look like all these different Zords can combine. It's the same thing they tried to do with Zord Builder, but instead of cramming it in and ruining your normal Megazords with that kind of really cluttered up and just inefficient toy gimmick, you just relegate that play style to its own toy line. That way you can make the Megazords as good as they could possibly be, add the articulation to them, and then over here you have this whole line of action figures where you can mix and match Zords, and any Zord from any season can combine with any other in this fun little make your own Megazord way. And Hasbro's full of stuff like this because of Transformers, because of Marvel. So much of this could apply to Power Rangers overnight, and we could get some really fun toys out of this. If you haven't noticed by now, I'm kind of really excited for this and the developments that it could have. There is so much potential for this. You could get the characters, the new designs from the comic books. You could get a Lord Drakon. If you've kept up with the Boom comic books, there's so much to do, and it's not a level of excitement I've had for Power Rangers in a long time. As much as I still love the old stuff, I've been waiting for something about the new stuff that would grab me, and I'm hoping Hasbro doesn't let me down. Though that said, if Hasbro at some point doesn't do a series of Power Rangers that literally transform into their Zords, I am going to be let down, and so are you now that I put the thought in your head. So, like I said, I might talk about the rest of Toy Fair stuff later on, but this is just kind of my excitement and like what's been buzzing through my head about what's the future of Power Rangers now that Hasbro, of all companies, Hasbro, now the company that has been losing out to Power Rangers for so long, now has control of Power Rangers. You imagine that. You walk into an action figure aisle in 2019, and the Power Rangers, the Marvel, the Star Wars, and the Transformers, that's half the action figure aisle, and it's all Hasbro now. That's kind of enormous. So, it's an interesting future we are looking forward to, and I am hoping that we finally have a Power Ranger line that might actually listen to its fan base, listen to its collectors, and do some exciting stuff the way it used to. One can hope. Wow, 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 wow.